Welcome back to your favorite sports podcast, The Lunatics. I'm your host, Tyler, along with my co-host and friend, John. We're here for another fun week, recapping of all the exciting things. We're going to do a quick 30-second recap, and then we'll probably do deeper dives on some things in the future.
I like how we said we weren't going to do a recap, and then as soon as we go live, you're like, 30-second recap.
30-second recap. Cardinals still disappointing everyone. St. Louis City still can't hold a lead, and the Blues are getting ready for preseason. There's your recap.
That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it.
So for the bulk of this episode, though, we're going to sit down, focus as we're getting ready to start college football season and talk about the Mizzou Tigers, who coming off an impressive season, finishing number 7, and a win over the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Sugar Bowl. Let's see what kind of exciting, fun things we have in store. John, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, since we're talking Mizzou, I thought it would be appropriate to go with a Columbia brewery. So I'm going with Logboat Brewing Co. Dark Matter. It's a porter. It's pretty good. I like a lot of their stuff that I've had. This one's new. Tried it for the first time this weekend and had to bring it back because I knew we were doing this episode. So really, I should be commended for showing restraint at the lake, because otherwise, this would have been just gone. Yeah, it would not have made it back. But I am so committed to this podcast, which, speaking of, before we go into anything else, I meant to bring this up last week, but I'm also very bad at this. Last week was almost exactly 1 year from when we started doing this. Our first episode was published on August 19th. Of 2023, and I think we recorded last week on the 20th. So anyway, go us. Still doing this. Still bad at it.
Hey, you know what? Yes, we're still bad at it. More importantly, though, we haven't ruined our friendship over it because we still hate each other just as much as we did before.
That's true. There's nothing to ruin. It's just is the way it is.
I went with, as you probably, anybody who's watching saw, because I couldn't make up my mind before he hit record, with my Knob Creek single barrel rye bourbon.
Nice.
So
I don't like rye
a solid
bourbons,
choice.
but that's nice. Yeah. There are people who like it. So I commend you for it. Also, you, more than just you. I'm also using another Missouri staple, my Bass Pro Koozie. So, I'm very on theme tonight.
That's more Missouri State, though. AKA SMS for anybody else who actually grew up in Missouri.
That's right. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. It's Missouri State. It's not. It's SMS. Southwest Missouri State.
Southwest Missouri State. That's right. Okay. Well, do we want to talk about the Missouri University?
Sure. We can start there. And by start there, I mean that's where we're going tonight. So last season, some people would say that we overperformed. How do you feel?
I mean, okay, we were like, I don't remember the stat. I think we had never beaten Ohio State in a bowl game. We had been like we'd only beaten like top 25 teams in bowl games like a handful of times. So beating Ohio State in a bowl game was, I mean, I guess you could say that was overperforming. I thought we did really well during the season, clearly. We finished, 12th in the standings last year at the end of the regular season, which is better than anyone expected.
Final poll had us at 7th.
Right. Yeah, that might be right.
After the Ohio State win.
Afterwards, yeah. So, I mean, considering where we were starting that season off, I think you could say that they overperformed. I think we figured out last year that there were some guys on this team who are the real deal, and I don't know, I'm a little concerned for where they're starting this season off, though, starting off at 11 in the preseason poll. What about you?
I think it doesn't like shock me per se where they started just because of the season they had, but I think they're 100% ranked based on where they finished the last year, right? It has nothing to do with how things actually turned out. So for those of you keeping score at home, they actually finished 8th in the final AP poll.
Oh, there we go.
There was a tie for 6th between the Oregon Ducks and Florida State. Florida State, on the other hand, we could talk briefly about them. They went undefeated last year, felt like they got shafted because their quarterback got hurt and their backup quarterback sucked, so they didn't get into the college football playoff, which would not be an issue this year. And then they lost their bowl game.
Well, then they lost their season opener to Georgia Tech, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
don't worry.
That's a rough
problem took care of itself.
It's a rough situation. Well, with the new format, they're not out of it yet because all they have to do is win the ACC. But now Georgia Tech is in the driver's seat, so that's a whole other situation.
Right.
So no, I think again we're starting the year 11th. I think also preseason we had picked up some decent transfers in the transfer pool, and I think they were accounting for that. Not all those transfers are going to play this season, and so that's going to hurt a little bit as well. So, obviously you've got some big playmakers, and offensively there's a few things obviously to think about, right? We still have Luther Burden, who's going to be a stud. He was last year. He has a chance to be, top wide receiver in the nation. I mean, you name it, he probably has a shot at it. Chances are he goes pro after this year because this is his junior year, so he can. And if you're the top receiver in the nation junior year, you're going pro.
Well, and Brady Cook is a senior, right? Mm-hmm. And like, if
quarterback transition,
right. You want to leave at the height of your game, and you know that no matter how good next year's starter is, like he's not going to be as good as Brady Cook is this year. So, you want to maximize your value. Yeah, they're both gone at the end of this year. Cook obviously because he's graduating, but Burden's not staying. If he has a decent year, he's gone.
So we picked up 2 running back transfers, but obviously we lost Cody Schrader. Something that I had looked at, and I don't remember where I saw the stat. I think Cody Schrader was on the field for something like 95% of the offensive snaps last year.
Yeah, it was something unreal.
That doesn't happen. And so how do you replace that guy? Because, I mean, if we really get down to it, I feel like Cody Schrader was the heart and soul of that offense. And do you feel like, Cook and Luther Burden are ready to kind of become the heart and soul, right? Because, I mean, Missouri thrived on its running game. Luther Burden had a great season of ground, and our passing game was fine. But we hammered people with our running game last year. And to top that off, we lost some depth on that offensive line. So do you think we're going, are you concerned about the new guys stepping in?
I mean, you're always worried when you have new starters on your offensive line, right? Like that's always a worry. I do think we're going to have some nice rotation at running back without Schrader. I know they've got Nate Noel or Marcus Carroll kind of listed as the guys, and I think that they put out their depth chart earlier this week, and I think they're listed as like so like they're both listed in the one line. Yeah, but not even really 1A, 1B. It's just like they're both in the one. And so I think we're going to see a lot of rotation there, which I think is pretty good. Because Cody Schrader was kind of an Iron Man last year, not only just because he was on the field for so many of our snaps, but I mean, we ran the ball through him a ton. So I'm hoping that we're able to establish that run again. We get the defense kind of biting off on that. We can open up a lot for Burden to really go out and shine. I do think Cook probably has the ability to take advantage of Burden's ability pretty easily. But if all they have to do is shut down Luther Burden, like we're going to be in a world of hurt. So offensively, yeah, we've got some new pieces going, but you've still got wide receiver number 1 and you still have your quarterback. So if you still have a good quarterback, you're going to be in it in a lot of games.
Oh yeah. Here's a quick rundown on Cody Schrader last year. He did not catch the ball to the backfield. He had 191 receiving yards on the season. He did, however, rush the ball for just over 1,600 yards and 14 touchdowns.
Ridiculous.
He averaged just over 21 carries a game and 125 yards.
Right. So then the question becomes then, can we get, say 1,600 yards between two running backs this year?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good running game if you're getting 1,600 yards. Like,
I guess my question is, do you need 1,600 yards or do you need 12 to 1,400 with Cook and Burden picking up the slack?
Exactly.
Or even the running backs picking up the slack and maybe catching more quick passes out of the backfield, because that was not what Coach Schrader was doing last year.
Right. Yeah, I think that you're hitting on the right points there, right? We don't need 1,600 yards out of them two this year. Now 1,600 all-purpose yards would be awesome, actually. If we get 1,600 all-purpose yards out of the two of them combined, we're doing pretty good. You have to imagine that we will be better able to take advantage of Burden's talents this year. He's a pretty phenomenally gifted athlete at a position and in a sport that's full of phenomenally gifted athletes, right? So I think that that's really important. I know I'm really interested to see how Brett Norfleet does this year, sophomore tight end. I think, anytime you're really looking for, a good receiving option, having a tight end who can catch the ball is going to be really big. And that's also going to relieve some of that pressure on the running backs and on Burden. I know we have a few other wide receivers. Weiss Jr. is one. Mookie Cooper is another one. They're going to be decent options. They're not going to be the star, but as long as they, can complement Burden, I think we're going to be okay there.
And Weiss was good last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like we saw what he could do last year.
Right.
I think something, and I want your opinion on this. I think, and they've hinted that they may do this, is let Luther Burden return punts more. If you've seen the highlights from Luther Burden from high school, the guy's electric returning punts and returning kicks. I don't expect him to return all of the punts and kicks this year, but I expect him to return some, where he didn't really do any last year. Especially, in a close game and you need something, I could see them letting him give it a go. My question is do you think Burden has a chance at the Heisman without returning kicks?
It is really hard for wide receivers to win the Heisman without returning kicks. And even then it's going to be hard. If he scores a couple of return touchdowns, whether it's on a punt or on a kickoff, could be in the conversation. I don't think Cook is going to be in the Heisman conversation. We don't have enough other high-end offensive weapons for him to offload to, and I don't think he's good enough to dominate without them. He could definitely surprise me this year, but when we're talking about being a Heisman candidate, I don't think he's quite at that level without, another guy of Luther Burden's ability on the field, basically.
Yeah, or close to it.
Or close to it, right. How do you feel about the defense this year?
If I'm being honest, I'm more concerned about the defense.
Why?
Well, your two top corners just got drafted. And in case you had forgotten, it's a pass-happy league in the college football world. So that makes me nervous. Our defensive line lost a couple guys to graduation. And we got a solid transfer in on the D-line, and then he was lost for the season. So yes. I think prior to losing him, felt better, but definitely nervous now.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention, you're talking about, who was it? Darius Smith, defensive end, towards ACL, I think.
Yep.
I do think that Mizzou over the last 2 seasons has been absolutely killing it in the recruiting, not just with out of high school, but out of the transfer portal. They've really cleaned up with that. I mean, a lot of guys, Mizzou definitely benefits from being in the SEC. Like, guys want to play in the SEC. But also there's a lot of teams that are available. And I think they've done a really, really good job of recruiting strong candidates to play for us. That's something that's got me really excited. I do 100% agree with you about the corners. I don't know. How good does the defense have to be against the teams we're playing this year, right? Like, they don't need to be excellent week in, week out, because they're going to be playing kind of a cupcake schedule most of the season. As far as regular season games, there's only 3-ish games that they really have to be up for it for.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to go ahead and just go through the schedule, and then we can kind of talk about that a little bit, and then maybe get to some predictions for it.
Yeah.
So we start on Thursday this week. Hopefully tomorrow, if I am, when you're listening to this tomorrow, if I'm good and get up and publish this in the morning, against Murray State. We should dominate them. It's a home game. That should be that is your quintessential tune-up game in football. After that, we play Buffalo, Boston College. All 3 of those are home games. Vanderbilt, another home game. Then we have our first test of the season. We go to Texas A&M, who I think are preseason 20-ish. 20.
Yep, they're number 20
in the polls. So that's our first test, having to go to Texas A&M. Then we play
College Station's always tough.
Always tough. Then we play the University of Massachusetts, because why not? We host Auburn. That's our second more iffy game. They could always get us. And then we go to Bama. That's a game I'm really concerned about, playing in Tuscaloosa. And I know this is not the Alabama of the past, but they're still Alabama, and they still have a ton of talent on their team. And then we host Oklahoma. So those 4 games right there are going to make or break our season. After we make it through Oklahoma, we play at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, and then we host Arkansas. So how many games is that? Is that we play 11? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 games. 8 of them should pretty easily be wins. It's just what happens in those last 4.
No, I agree. I think they will be definitely more wins there than losses. But I think, you missed there too. We have Vandy at home too, which is technically okay. I didn't. Maybe you said it. My headphones cut out for a minute, so I'm trying to fight with them a little bit.
See that.
But but Vandy at home is technically an SEC game. But let's be honest, it's Vandy.
Right. Yeah. So I think you're right on there. That is an SEC game. A&M is an SEC game. Auburn is not. Right. Auburn's in the ACC. Right. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure that's right. Yeah.
Auburn's SEC.
Are they?
That's SEC. Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I thought they were in the ACC. I don't know why I thought. Oh, no. Clemson's in the ACC. I think I always get them mixed up which conference they're in.
We played Auburn in the SEC title game back in 2012 or 2012,
right? Yeah. The first year we were in the SEC, right?
First year, second year. We went to SEC title game back-to-back years. We haven't been back.
Oklahoma thinks they're going to do that this year. I am nervous about playing Oklahoma again. I know they're not, not the same team that we've played in the past. I am very interested to see how them and Texas do this season in the SEC, because the SEC is definitely harder than the Big 12 was for them. But that's a team that could get us. But I mean, we should be 4-0 heading into Texas A&M, comfortably 4-0.
There should be no reason you lose to Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, or Vandy.
Right.
And so you should roll in, and you have a bye week the week before A&M.
Oh, that helps. That helps
So
a ton.
you come off of Vandy, you get 2 weeks to prepare for A&M. Now, College Station's a tough place to play. A&M is good every single year. We all know that. But it's a winnable game. If you want to chalk that up as a loss, right? If we're going through the schedule, you say they lose there.
They're going to beat
Um,
Mass.
you'll beat UMass in the Minutemen. We should beat Auburn at home. We go to Alabama. You say you lose that one. Coin flip against Oklahoma at home. With us being at home, I'd like to give us the edge. And then we should beat South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas. So you're looking at another 2-loss campaign, which in the 2-loss campaign in the SEC, as long as that A&M game and Alabama game, if you do in fact lose them, if they're close, you'd have to imagine we'd be close to the top 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
And top 10 makes the playoffs. Playoffs?
Playoffs. Yeah. I think so. Of those 4 games, I think we should be able to scrap out one of those 4 as a win. And I'm not like picking one. I'm just saying, like, as a floor, we should definitely win at least one of those games, right? That would make us 9-3. I think that would have us comfortably outside the playoff. 10-2, I think is pretty close to the playoff. You could go in, could go out, could be right. It's a bubble. It's a bubble record, right?
Yeah.
11-1. So if we win 3 of those 4 games and say that one loss is Alabama, like, that puts you in. Now, the next question is, though, I guess would it be better to miss the SEC championship game and to be the 3rd SEC team, right? And not have to play in the championship game, because the loser, you have to imagine that the loser of the championship game might not make the playoffs, right?
So yeah, that's where it gets tricky, because you could. So imagine you have either an undefeated or 1-loss team, and you've got two-loss teams. You'd rather be the second of those 2-loss teams, because you don't want to have a 3rd loss when the committee's deciding.
Right.
The only way that plays in your favor is if it's an undefeated team and you take them to they have to kick a game-winning field goal as time expires, right? And it's like, yeah, no, these guys are on par with them. If you lose by a score or 2, you're done.
Well, I mean, you have to lose by at least 1 score, right?
By a touchdown or 2. Let me rephrase.
Fair.
Touchdown or more.
I knew what you meant. I just had to give you crap about it.
Yeah.
You would have done the same to me.
I honestly would. Lord knows I don't want to let you get away with anything, even if it didn't do anything wrong.
No, absolutely not. So, my heart wants to say that this team will go 11-1 in the regular season. My brain says 10-2, and based on how they've done every other year, that I've been very confident in what they would do at the beginning of the season.
Saying 8-4?
8-4, right? Exactly. I'm a little worried about how good I think this team can be, but also, and I think this is important to say too, they need to be blowing these other teams out, right? Those first 4 games need to be huge wins, and UMass needs to be a huge win. Like they need statement wins to stay up there in the polls, because their schedule is so easy that I think just winning is not enough, right? Like, no one cares if you're beating Murray State or Buffalo or Boston College, right? No one cares that you beat UMass. Now, if you beat them something like 56-7, well, then we're going to say, okay, yeah, you're a top tier team. Like, you just demolished them. But
yeah, and I kind of, yes, I agree to that, but to an extent, right? But like, if you go out and you beat Murray State on Thursday 35-14, and your starters only play half, nobody's going to ding you for that, right? Like that, there's an optics to part of that too, right? Like, if you go out in the second half, you don't have a single one of your starters because you don't want to get them hurt. 1, good for you drink. Like that's smart, management, making sure
Smart
that
football.
we're not gonna ruin our players early in the year, rotations, right? And then got to get those sliders set correctly so you're rotating people effectively.
That's an
And
NCAA college football joke. It's video games.
hashtag video games.
You don't want
Which, by the
what you're
way, I would
saying
like
is
to remind you, I'm still 1-0 against you in that game.
you don't want your star defensive end to go down for the year when he's in for a Heisman hunt as a defensive player.
First of all, he won the Heisman in our joint franchise last year. He was trying to defend said Heisman and then went down.
That's what happened.
With a torn pectoral. Mm-hmm. And his senior year, man, it's heartbreaking.
He better be rehabbing if he wants to be drafted. What about you? So I just gave my prediction. What are you giving?
My heart says best case scenario is 10. Best case scenario, right, is going to be 11-1 in my mind.
Yes.
But realistically, I feel like best case scenario for this team is, and I haven't until I see them, and things could change after watching a few games.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. This is all preseason.
But right this minute, I'd say 10-2. But more realistically, I think 8-4, 9-3. But I think if they hit 10-2, they're potentially, I think there's a 85% chance they're in the playoff, and I think that's the goal here, right? You want your team to make the playoffs.
Right. I mean, I think 8-4 is a little harsh. I think 9-3 is pretty realistic. 8-4 means that they lost probably all 4 of those games we just called out, or they won one of the 3 and then freaking blew it to Arkansas at the last game of the season, which also would be on brand for Mizzou football.
Yeah. I see for them, right? And we've called it already, right? But you've got A&M, you've got Alabama, you have Oklahoma, and you have Auburn. But you never know what you're going to get with Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Arkansas, because any given year, those teams could be incredibly
Any team
tough.
in the SEC can upset any other team in the SEC. Like year in and year out.
I mean,
that's
even
pretty
Vandy's going to win a game or two.
Right. Even Vandy. But I mean, those are games that this Mizzou team should win. Like let's call it what it is. Like they should win those games.
Mm-hmm.
But it is the SEC.
And again, it goes in the Oklahoma, right? Like Oklahoma has not been the same since Lincoln Riley left, but they haven't been bad.
No, Oklahoma's
right?
never bad, right? Like it's still a marquee program, right? It's like Texas. Texas is never bad.
And like I don't love playing. Honestly, I'd rather have played Texas. I know Texas is the better team right now, but I just still have terrible flashbacks because of the Chase Daniel season. It was 2007 when we had 2 losses.
Yeah,
2
losses.
Both of them
didn't get a New Year's Day bowl because we lost Oklahoma twice. It was such crap. Still scarred. I think our whole generation, like if you were playing high school football at that time and were obsessed with Mizzou, like you're permanently scarred by that year.
Yeah. The only condolence I have for that is remembering what happened to Oklahoma against Boise State. Was it year after?
Yes. Yeah. You remember when Appalachian State, that was also that year that I think Appalachian State beat Michigan week 1.
Michigan who?
Exactly.
Was it 34-30? 34-30, Michigan who 34-32 or something like that?
Yeah.
Is that the final score, 34-32?
Yeah. It was really close, but it was still like, huge win.
Michigan was number 1 or 2 going into the season.
Yeah, they were very highly ranked when it happened. Yeah.
That was kind of the downfall of the Michigan program for a few years. I say downfall as in like they were not a top tier program for a few years. And then Harbaugh was really the factor that pushed them back into the contention. Although it sounds like he may have broken a few rules and put a few too many times gave cheeseburgers instead of hamburgers. So they're out after him over that. So
there you go.
If he comes back to college, he won't be able to coach for a while.
Yes. I don't know, but Mizzou's back to Mizzou though. Their schedule is super easy, and like I don't think they're going to make the SEC championship, but I don't know.
I
10 and
think
2.
after the game in College Station at Texas A&M,
That's when
if
we'll
they
know.
come back and they've won that game, my view on this season is going to have completely changed.
I would agree with that, right? Because that's the first big test that they are going to face. That gets you through one of your 4 games. I think we said that they are probably going to beat Auburn at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you beat A&M away, well, okay, and you then beat Auburn at home, which is what we expect, well, then that Oklahoma game doesn't really matter as much, right? You can lose that Oklahoma game. And if Oklahoma has a good season, like they could be ranked at that point, right? Now,
they are ranked now. They're number 15 right now, 16 right now.
Oh, you're right. They are number 16. I actually have the rankings up on my other screen. I did not even see that.
Yeah, no, I was like Oklahoma's 16, Alabama's number 5, and A&M's number 20.
Right. Right.
With
I was
Mizzou
surprised
at
that Oklahoma was not ranked actually before before you pointed that out. I was like, man, I thought this Oklahoma team was pretty good. I can't believe they're not ranked. Well, that explains that. The one thing that could be a killer for Mizzou, though, let's say they beat A&M and they beat Auburn, right? And maybe Auburn is ranked by that time, and we beat them, and that helps a lot. But we play Alabama and Oklahoma in back-to-back games. There's a bye week in there, but for us, it's back-to-back games. That could be a killer.
And it's late in the season too.
And it's late in the season. Yeah.
Losing back-to-back games late in the season hurts. Like realistically, you can lose the A&M game and get away with it.
Right.
You can't lose both of those games.
No. You absolutely need to win one of those 2
College
games.
football playoff the committee is going to absolutely throw you into that. You'll get stuck in that you're ranked, but we don't actually give a shit, like 15 to 20 purgatory.
Right. and we don't play anyone that terribly good after it. So unless we go out and, like demolish South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Arkansas, which are teams that we're probably not going to be able to really put a huge beating on. Like I think we can win and maybe even win comfortably, but not blow them out, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Arkansas last year we put a beat down on 48-14, but
that's true. If we can do that again, and then if we could do that against all 3 of them, right? But I do think they have to win one of those 2 games to make the playoffs. I could even give them losing to Auburn, right? If they beat Oklahoma, or even if heaven forbid they beat Alabama, right? That's going to shoot them, right back up. But
oh god, yeah. But and looking last year, right? We didn't play Mississippi State, right? But we played some of these other teams last year, right? Like we played South Carolina, we beat them pretty handily. That was a 34-12 game. Vandy was actually, we gave up some points to Vandy, but again, 38-21 is not what I would consider close.
No, anytime you win by, that's 17 points. That's a 3-score game, right? Mm-hmm. A 3-score game is not close. And I think we could beat all 3 of those teams by at least 14 points. Right.
Yeah. Well, you look at Tennessee was ranked last year, right? They finished the season number 17, 36-7.
Yeah, I forgot about that game. That was a fun game. That was a really fun game.
That was a fun game.
Everyone likes to beat up on Tennessee, though, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't think there's any every team likes to beat Tennessee.
The only 2 games we lost was that absolute freaking race day racetrack game against LSU was like 49-39 that just went back and forth and back and forth. And then we lost to Georgia by a few field goals.
Right. Which was a lot closer than I remember thinking that was closer than I had expected with Georgia. I am very thankful that we don't play Georgia this year.
I agree.
We lost to them 21 or by 9 30-21.
I said by a few field goals.
No, I know. I'm just updating the listeners. We were ranked 8th at the time. They were ranked 4. But like also this is also another thing that always pisses me off about the way the rankings are done, right? If you're ranked 8th and you lose to a top 5 team, you will drop out of the top 10 normally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not that far out of the top 10, but you will drop out of the top 10 when really you should lose to a team that's better than you, right? If the rankings are correct, you should lose to that team.
It's like, I feel like that's where like college basketball does better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in college basketball, you might lose, North Carolina might be ranked 12th and they might lose to Duke, who's ranked 4th, which pains me to say that because I'm a North Carolina fan. But for this example, North Carolina is not going to drop unless they get absolutely just dismantled by Duke.
Right.
In the case against Georgia, it was a close game, right? A 9-point game. It's a 2-score game. That is a close game in college football, right? And for your 8th-ranked team to lose to your 4th-ranked team by that score, that's realistic.
Yeah. But I would say so.
So, it maybe dropping a spot or two if the people behind you had some like amazing wins, whatever else. I get that. But I think they dropped to like 12th or 13th or something crazy.
Right.
So
Brady threw 212 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions that game, but Weiss had 90 yards receiving in that game.
I also think your rankings are off a little bit too, because I think you're looking at the stuff that shows what they were ranked at the end of the year, not at what they were ranked when they played.
What rankings?
Because we finished the season 8. You said we were ranked 8th and they were ranked 4th when we played them.
Oh, I don't know. I was using Google.
That's where they finished the season.
Oh yeah, that's just what Google said it was whenever I pulled it up.
Google doesn't keep track of that. I don't remember what the rankings were, but
no, we didn't we finish 12th last year?
I could have sworn we finished 8th. We finished 8th because there was a tie for 6th in the final poll. We did already have this conversation earlier in this episode. Georgia was ranked number 1 at the time, I think, when we played them.
Yes, and we were number 14. Yeah, so when on ESPN it shows that Google like the AI compiles, the information and has the final rankings then.
Well, that's like the AI. Somebody asked how St. Louis AI in Google how St. Louis City's season was going, and they screenshotted the answer into one of the St. Louis City fan groups. So for those of you who aren't in the fan groups, you'll get a kick out of this because it said it had our record greatly improved and said that we were like in one of the top spots in the Western Conference. And I'm like, oh, so we've been in the wrong part of the matrix.
Right. I don't want to talk about City right now. I'm very sad. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about City next week.
It's going to be a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So
I'm sad.
Again, with the Tigers, I think there's a lot to be encouraged about. I think there's a lot to be excited about. And Lord knows we're going to have to talk about them next week after this game against Murray State, depending on, how things go. Maybe a quick, they did exactly what we expected them to do, or it could be a, hey, we might have some concerns.
Yes. We will report back in approximately 7 days.
Although I did want to talk about something else that's not necessarily sports related, that people will be seeing on our socials here coming up this week. So we will be part of a fun charity event and fundraiser, the Cardinal Glennon Sun Run, and I think it's actually a 6K this year when I was looking at the lineup. So 6K or run or 1 mile walk. We'll be posting the link if anybody wants to sign up and join our teams. You get a free t-shirt and sunglasses and get to hang out. They've usually have beer and food and good things out in Forest Park that day. Myself, John, and our families will be there. Our team name is a lovable Ewan and the Goobers. For those of you who don't know, Ewan is my youngest son, who is actually a Cardinal Glennon kid and has had surgeries and other things there. So they've been a big part of our life, and we've done the Sun Run every year since Ewan was born. So he's been a fun thing for us, and John is puts up with me enough to come and actually show up and do these things. And he's been a part of our team multiple years now. So thanks to you,
Yes.
John, for always being out there.
Oh,
But
you're welcome.
for anybody who's interested, we're going to be putting that out, and we'd love to see you guys come out. If enough people sign up, they'll actually give us our own tent to hang out and do things at. So, yeah.
Well,
That's also a fun
I'm
thing.
very highly motivated to do this.
Yeah.
Right. Like I want a tent. I just want to win.
yeah. I just want to win. Yeah, no. So
Right.
if you get enough people, the Sunrun crew will actually set up your very own tent where you can like bring your own coolers and set up chairs and stuff, and have a place for your group to hang out and spend the day. So if anybody is excited or looking for something fun to do, that is an awesome opportunity. We'll have links shared on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll get that stuff out there. So hopefully you guys can come out and sign up and join us, and it'll be a fun time. Anything to add there, John? John will be running the 6K
yes.
more than likely.
There
is a 50-50 chance whether or not I'm running it this year, because my sister-in-law might be coming to town. And if she does, then my wife has an extra hand to help hold on to kids during the walk, which means I could actually potentially run it with you this year.
Well, I mean, run it simultaneously.
You're right. I'll be way ahead of you.
Exactly my point. Yes.
That's a joke. For those of you who don't know, I don't run distance anymore ever, and John does. So it's not going to be a close race.
And I am not particularly fast at distance anymore. But for those of you listening who care, because this episode is still ongoing, Tyler was faster at short distances. I was faster at longer distances. And that's who we are. Although,
and that's carried on for most of our lives.
Yes, I have to tell you another funny story about us running. So my daughter does field hockey, and her camp that she did this summer was at local high school, and when she's doing the camp, my wife and I walk the track around it, and so naturally I'm reliving my glory days. While we're there, even though it's not the school I went to. And we're like walking up, and my daughter looks at my wife and she goes, "Mom, did you know that Dad and Tyler used to run on a track like this?" And my wife goes, yeah, like I knew that. Yeah, I know things about them. And
not like
goes,
this for you, but
right, yeah. And then she goes, "Oh, okay, good. Did you know Tyler was a lot faster than Daddy?" And I was like, I'm about to throw you onto this field. Like, go, leave me alone.
Yeah. Again, quarter mile and under, man. I was there, but got me to the 800 in high school. I could still do it. After that, not that I was slow in the mile and further distances, right? I mean, the last time I ran a timed mile was junior year of high school. And I ran a 5 minute and 6 second mile in a not actual race. So like, I felt like at that time, sure.
Yeah. You would have been faster
me out
than
for
me
more than that.
Yeah.
Stretch me out more than a mile, and it goes downhill real fast.
You would have been faster than me in high school at that distance. It was in college where I would have passed you. I think our 800 times were really close. I might have had a slight edge in the 800 on you. Because I barely dropped off from my 400 time, but after that I was like, probably like you were at the end of the mile. Yeah. Like, oh God, I hated the 800.
So, I hated it so and much. The flip side of things though, I mean, let's be honest though, you and I should race over hurdles sometime, because that would be fun.
No. I haven't done hurdles since 7th grade. I haven't done hurdles since 7th grade because I ate it at I think it was at Mexico High School's track, and I have scars all over my knees and arms from
that's not what the scars on his knees are from, but yeah.
Sure.
Anyway,
not gonna touch that one.
It's good. Our quintessential Stan Kroenke, we hate you, but more importantly, I'd like to end this episode with M.I.Z.
We love you.
I was gonna say FKU, but I mean close enough.
Close enough, yeah. I was going to let you do whatever, and then you just paused it. I'm just like, I'm going to mess it up
I was going to let you finish, but, it's fine.
I guess
you struggle with finishing now.
Yeah.
It's good. Have a good
night. No, but
everyone.
I do get ads for that now on Reddit, so that's That's funny. And then I clicked on one because I had never heard of the company before. And so now I get more because I have fed into the algorithm. So
You fed into the algorithm. And
yeah.
with that, Stan Kroenke, we hate you. Good night, everyone.